Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the recap and review of NCIS Season 17, Episode 14, On Fire. The first big thing we get is Bishop recounting to the team what went down during the hit and run. We don't really see what happened, but based on her account, I imagine it went a little something like this. The nurse explains to Gibbs that Torres has head trauma and a heart condition, although he has no broken bones, which... how? But as he's explaining this to him, Torres starts crashing again and Gibbs is ushered out of the room. Finally, his surgeon comes out and tells him that they removed a carbon fiber from his spine and he's now in a medically induced coma. McGee goes to talk to Casey down in the lab and Casey points out that Bishop is taking this a little bit differently than the rest of them. It evolves into a conversation about how they're both gonna need therapy if Bishop and Torres hook up, and at the rate these episodes are going, they might as well sign up now. Casey is able to trace the sliver they removed from Torres's spine back to a car owned by Xavier Zolotov, a Russian trust fund baby. Gibbs and Bishop go to confront him at his apartment and they encounter this interesting yoga woman, but they usher her back inside. Xavier's wife invites them in and asks how they can pay off whatever he's done. Xavier then comes out and essentially asks the same thing, except he's naked, so please don't do that. They bring him into interrogation and he admits to basically everything, but doesn't seem too concerned about it. Vance pulls Bishop and Gibbs aside and tells them that they have to let Xavier go because of sovereign immunity, because he has some old royal Russian blood. She then harps on Vance for letting this go so easily, and she's like, you know what if this was your kid? Which kind of suggests that Torres is her kid. If McGee thought the brother-sister thing was weird, I get a load of this. Vance turns to Gibbs and is like, well, they're not my kids, but they're also not your kids either. And then Gibbs says that these are the only kids he has left. It's then that McGee looks at Xavier's Instagram and sees that they illegally own a pet tiger. As that's happening, Gibbs gets a call that Torres is going back into surgery, so he sends Bishop to the hospital. I'm sure the nurses are thrilled. McGee and Gibbs go track Xavier down, shooting some hoops. They break it to him that they've just arrested his wife over the whole tiger thing, and he's not going to be able to leave the country with her. Not only is Xavier not upset about that, he's actually pretty thrilled. He's like, cool, thanks. Back at the hospital, the surgeon comes out and tells Bishop that Torres' surgery went well, but he still has fluid on his lungs. McGee walks in and tells Bishop that they think Xavier's gonna get away, and then Bishop's like, I'm gonna kill him. And she doesn't mean it figuratively. McGee and Bishop then get into this very loud argument about whether or not she's gonna kill this man, and everyone walking by is like, you know what? I'm gonna stay the f out of this conversation. McGee's then like, I need to call Gibbs and give him an update on our man. And Bishop's like, our man? This is my man, thank you very much. Bishop then just kind of mellows out and tells McGee she's going to the office. The next day in her office, Sloane is talking to Gibbs about how she's concerned about Bishop due to some things that McGee told her happened. Gibbs is very shook that McGee called her about Bishop's mental state. What does he think she is, a psychologist? Sloane tells him that she thinks he should take Bishop off the case, and Gibbs is like, no, because if he took a team member off every time they got personally involved in this case, this show would not exist. She then says that not only is Bishop spiraling, Gibbs is as well. She says that this time the bad guy's gonna get away, no one's gonna pay, and that's gonna be unbearable for him. The two of them then look at Xavier's profile and see that his ego probably needs a little bit of stroking, so he probably has a secret girlfriend. Down in the squad room, McGee tells Gibbs that he can't find Bishop and realizes she never went back to the office. Bishop then materializes and Gibbs pulls her aside. Gibbs confronts Bishop about this whole murder thing she's been talking about, and Bishop's like, what are you talking about? I was never serious, I was just ranting. And Gibbs holds strong. He's like, I can't let you do something stupid. He warns Bishop that it's something she can't recover from, and Bishop's like, well, you manage. And he's like, yeah, I kind of manage, but do I seem happy at all? He looks at Bishop and he's like, do you want to become me? And Bishop's like, I already have. Bishop then storms off and Gibbs gets a call that Torres is awake. Casey, meanwhile, looks through footage that this guy got of Xavier from his motorcycle cam, and they're able to zoom in and see who his passenger was at the time. Turns out it's his secret girlfriend who... Hey, remember that yoga lady from earlier? I also like that this girlfriend lives literally 2 doors down from Xavier and his wife. He literally housed his secret girlfriend 2 seconds away. Ballsy. The three of them bust in and find Xavier's dead body in the bathtub. And then Gibbs and McGee just turn and stare at Bishop. And then Jimmy comes in and finds a long blonde hair. It's convenient. Except for Bishop. Maybe that's less convenient for her. Casey, however, is able to confirm that the hair belongs to the girlfriend. Gibbs then goes to Bishop and is like, listen, I know you didn't do it. And Bishop's like, well, how do you know I didn't do it? What's wrong with you? Girl, why would you say that? They then dig deeper on the girlfriend, whose name is Colleen, by the way, and they see that her parents left her and her sister like a boatload of money when they died. But the sister never got the money because she died of a heroin overdose years ago. The authorities had thought that Colleen killed the sister so she wouldn't have to share the inheritance. It also turns out that Torres was working undercover as Colleen's boyfriend on that case. Torres was likely going to have a lot of evidence against her, so she had Xavier try and kill him off. We then cut to Colleen sneaking into Torres's hospital room again. Excellent security. She then injects an entire vial of bad heroin into his IV. But then Bishop and Gibbs burst in, and Torres was awake the whole time and had unhooked his IV, and the whole thing was set up to catch Colleen. As Colleen is being like yanked away, she's like, you were the worst boyfriend ever. I feel like she and Jean should have like a support group happening. They then leave Bishop and Torres to be in the room by themselves. At first they're just kind of like joking around and giving each other a hard time. And then all of a sudden it gets very serious and Torres is like, I risked my life for yours. And then they just start holding hands because hit and run seems to set the mood for these people. Back in the squad room, this guy is pink for some reason, but we'll just ignore that. Bishop apologizes to Vance and Vance is like, sure. Gibbs walks away and then McGee walks up to Bishop and is like, you know, Colleen was really adamant that she didn't kill Xavier. And then Bishop just keeps reiterating that it wasn't her. And Mickey's like, no, of course, I would never think it was you. And then immediately accuses her again. He's like, well, if it wasn't you, these people just love to accuse each other of murder and then just never talk about it again. And then they're like, well, who did it? And then we cut to Gibbs. McGee and Bishop then just like watches the door shut and they're like, oh, it's probably him. And that is on fire. Obviously, I think a lot of this episode has to do with Bishop and Torres's relationship, but I also think it kind of served as like a vehicle driving us into this next Gibbs-centric plot, because there was that whole thing where Sloane was like, this is unbearable to you, the fact that this guy's gonna get away with this with no repercussions, and then that like a little bit menacing shot in the elevator at the end, kind of implying that Gibbs might have had a hand in this perhaps. I think that would be a really interesting bridge into this possible like vigilante Canadian drug dealer situation that I think we might be going back to, because I don't think after all these years he would just be able to walk away from it so cleanly. I think he would have that little bit of a relapse, and I think that would add such an interesting layer to this possible arc. I'm always really fascinated by Gibbs and Bishop's relationship because they make them clash just so often. And then in this episode she was like, well, I am you, Gibbs. And I was like, what's happening? They have both been through very traumatic things, and I am in no way, shape, or form trying to belittle the traumatizing things that Bishop has been through. I don't think that they have made her Gibbs. I think she could fear getting there or start to see like the seeds growing of that horrific tree. I just don't think she's there yet. Was the office that Bishop went to Ziva's office? Because that's kind of immediately where my mind went, and when he said that she hadn't been to the office, I'm like, oh, Odette's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like maybe this was the deciding factor in her choosing to train with Odette. Again, I feel like that was a storyline we really did not get closure on. I think the reason we didn't get closure on it is because maybe it is continuing with this. Can we just talk about that bathroom scene? The tone of the scene was so serious, and yet they would have, again, like this sitcom energy where Jimmy Palmer would pull up a blonde hair and be like, whose could this be? And then he'd be like, I think it's hers. And then you'd think he's like pointing at Bishop, but then it turns out he's pointing at a picture of the girlfriend behind her. This is not something you'd see on like Parks and Rec. I had a good time watching it. I just, maybe not for the reason I was supposed to. McGee and Bishop's relationship is also really interesting to me because I feel like some episodes there's like a really strong brother-sister bond there, and then some episodes it's like he's about to send her to prison. Like immediately. It's a little bit weird to me, but I don't hate it. I think this episode was like another big step forward for Bishop and Torres' relationship, especially with the hand-holding. Hello. I do think it was a little bit weird that he was like, just to let you know, I tried to die for you. It was very Torres, but I just don't know if I always like that aspect of Torres' personality, but like, I'm very curious to see where we go from here. Again, I do really want to see them have some more just quaint scenes. We've been getting like really big things, whether it be like Ziva telling Torres to tell her how he feels, or him jumping in front of a speeding car to save her life. Like these really big things that attest to their feelings for one another. I feel like we just go from big moment to big moment with them, and we don't always get to see like little relationship building things. These big things are nice, but I think the big things maybe kind of fall apart at some point if you don't have the more structural things to hold it up, if that makes sense. What's next? I know the next episode is like a Valentine's Day situation. I think there's like a dating app involved. The next episode after that really grabbed my attention. It seems like they're just like inserting themselves in this other man's life to kind of piece together the case. When you have an episode like this, like something similar to Life Before His Eyes, where it exists outside like the canon realm of the show, to me, I think it's just an opportunity to go absolutely batshit crazy. And that's kind of what I want to see. From the press photos, we saw like a flashback version of Gibbs and Sloane, and I stared at it for 5 minutes before I realized it was Gibbs and Sloane. I really was like, why is Elizabeth Olsen in this episode? We will be at episode 16 at that point. That means we'll be 2/3 of the way through season 17. I don't think I'll be doing a review for this next episode, the Valentine's Day one, but I'm very excited to make a recap and review on the episode after that. Definitely let me know your guys' thoughts on Fire. Where do you think we're going with Bishop, Gibbs, and then the whole Bishop and Torres thing? I believe that's it for now, and I will see you guys for the next recap and review.